Welcome to the Agency Uplift Podcast, the show all about the unique experience of growing a digital agency, the ups, the downs, the challenges, and the learnings. I'm your host, Sean Lang, agency owner of over 7 years and co-founder of Social Commerce Club. And today I'm joined by Eli Rubel, founder of Profit Labs and also founder of Mattermade and NBD. Now, Profit Labs helps agency owners increase their margins by taking over as their outsourced finance department. And I know that's something that a lot of agencies probably need a ton of help with. Eli, great to have you on the show. And I hope that I pronounced your last name correctly.
Sean, you nailed it. Thanks for having me on the show.
Perfect. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on. Let's dig in. We're definitely going to get into Profit Labs, but I want to get to your origin story first. What was your first agency and what made you decide to do the crazy thing that is starting an agency?
Yeah. So we're going to go all the way back to 2019 to tell that story. I was coming off of being a SaaS founder, did the venture-backed SaaS thing. That business was acquired in like a non-glamorous acquisition style. It was life-changing for me, but in the scheme of Silicon Valley, it was like a massive failure. So that was fun. I learned a lot. Then I took the proceeds from that sale and I bought an e-commerce business that I spent 4 years turning around, sold it to a private equity firm. And after both of those, I was just tired of trying to take these really big swings. And instead I was ready to take a swing that would optimize for my lifestyle, optimize for the things I actually care about. You know, I think 2019 was around the time I was old enough that I didn't care as much about the egoic pursuits. And I'm like, sure, there's still ego involved, but it wasn't like up until that point, I was like, I'm going to build a company. I'm going to take it public. I want to have to take an elevator to visit the different floors of all my, employees and had this grandiose vision. And then right around 30, I was like, you know what? I want to have a family. I want to spend time in the mountains and I want to spend time with my kids. And so, and I'm inherently, I always joke like I'm inherently a lazy person, which people who know me think is hilarious because I have a lot of stuff that I juggle. But I believe that I'm inherently lazy, and for that reason, I was like, I want to find a business where I can work as little as possible and make as much as possible. And an agency.
So you started an agency?
Yeah. Okay, listen. It started off as a consulting thing where I was like, it's just going to be me. I just need 15 clients.
Famous last words.
Yeah, exactly. That'll pay me $2,500 a month, and like, all right, it's gonna be great. And then after I had got my first 2 clients, I was like, man, clients fucking suck. I don't want to be doing this work. I need to find someone else who deals with these clients. And so it became an agency. I hired my first person, and then we ramped that business. This is Mattermade. We ramped that business up to 40 people. Full time. We did the year that we were 40 people, we did 4.2 million in EBITDA. So 4.2 million in net profit. And
that's wild.
Yeah, it was a crazy ramp. I mean, mind you, we made every mistake in the book leading up to that point.
So you ramped up to 40 people and you're kind of glossing over that. What did that look like? Because I mean, I'm picturing red-faced, white knuckle, lots of like, oh shit moments. Like what does that look like ramping up to 40 people?
Oh yeah, your picture is accurate. Imagine someone's holding me and everyone around me in like a rickety chair and they're shaking it above their head and they're like, we're going to go into orbit now. That's kind of how it felt. Yeah, I mean, with any business, you're typically building it as you fly it, right? You don't really know necessarily what you're getting yourself into until you're in it, or at least that was my experience. And then right when you think you have a handle on the thing, it gets to a growth or an inflection point where everything breaks and you have to reinvent. All the processes that used to work stop working. All of the team members who are great for the early phase aren't digging the later phase, right? So it's just, it's quite the process. So to get more tangible with that, we started the business, marketing agency, servicing tech clients. And the first hire that I made was this guy that I just really admired. We'd met through the VC firm that backed my first company, and I hosted like a VP of marketing meetup within that portfolio of startups. And this guy was like a marketing manager, just super hungry, super driven, super sharp. And I just had earmarked him in my mind of like, I always want to work with, someday I want to work with this guy. So called him up, was like, hey, here's the deal. I don't want to do the work. I can get us business. Would you be interested in partying together in a work setting? And so he's like, yeah, let's do it. So started off part-time. Within a month, I'd closed enough business, maybe 2 months. I'd closed enough business to tell him like, hey, if you want to make this full-time and you like what we're doing, then quit your job and let's do this. And so he did. Then we hired, so the first hire was like marketing doer. Then the next hire was a project manager, because I was like, well, I don't like project managing this stuff, and the clients need some structure and an onboarding process and all the jazz. So I hired a project manager, and then we hired some more doers. And before we knew it, we were probably a 6 to 10 person team. Our first year. So my goal when I set out, back when I thought it was just going to be me, my goal was like, I want to build this thing to get me to a place where I'm making $40,000 a month in profit, like into my pocket. And I don't even know. I have to do the math. What's 40 times 12? Yeah. So right around $500,000 a year was my goal. And in my mind, I was like, that'll pay for the lifestyle I want to have. I can't imagine what I would possibly need more money than that for. And like, I'll just be happy when I get there and I won't want to keep growing. Well, we got there in like the first 6 months. And
Wow.
yeah. And I should caveat this with, this was 2019. Tech was on fire. People were spending money as fast as they could. It was the growth at all cost days. And so I think I started at a pretty ideal time, and I caught this wave of like incredible buyer spending from 19 to 21. So yeah, we hit it within the first 6 months, and then I just kept going. I was like addicted to the process and was having a lot of fun. I think our first year we closed somewhere around like 800 or 900K in profit, I want to say. Then our second year we did something like 1.8. And then, or no, it was 1.2 in the first year, 2.4 in the second year, and then third year was 2021 where we did 4.2. So just a wild ramp up.
Just a consistent doubling.
Yeah.
Basically.
And again, like everything broke like along the way. So I think most agency owners that I've talked to, and myself across the agencies I've started, the experience is like 0 to 10 is pretty predictable. You know everybody on the team really well. You're all in the trenches together.
0 to 10 people.
People. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have your finger on the pulse of what's going on. Everybody's on the same page. Right around 15-ish people, that's where I've noticed there's this break point where things
100%.
start to fall apart. You have to implement a lot of structure that you didn't have to have previously. And then that usually gets you, like, you fix all of that, and then you get to around 30, maybe 35 people, and everything breaks again. And that's the point where you need like a whole new layer of management that you didn't have previously. It's not just process that's going to get you there anymore. You need new departments that you didn't need previously, like HR and internal recruiting. And it just gets a lot more complex and a lot more corporate. and I don't mean that in a bad way. Just like there's a lot more structure that's needed to hold the plane together at that point. So yeah, that was my journey to our peak year, followed by the most insane crash anyone's ever had, or that I've ever had. We went from 40 people, 4.2 million in that year, to 5 people.
Wow.
Losing $200,000 a month. Because I held on to team members. So the market crashed, if you guys remember. If you're not in tech, I'll give the brief history lesson. Was 2021, everything was amazing. End of 2021 going into 2022, we had the VC tech winter where everybody's like, oh, this COVID thing, like, we don't know what's going to happen. Stop spending money, fire all your vendors. And so we had no diversification. Our clients were exclusively tech. And so the majority of our client base disappeared overnight. And a lot of them went out of business not shortly thereafter. So we suddenly were holding the bag on 40 employees. And Yeah. So, and then I, thinking was like, okay, we just spent close to $1 million to recruit these people through recruiter fees over the course of the last 2 years. There's no way I'm going to fire everyone right now. Like, this can't be as bad as everybody's making it out to be. I'm going to hold on. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to play chicken with my competitors. My competitors are probably going to freak out and like, fire everyone. So I'm going to be like, I'm going to be the hero, man. I'm going to hold on to these people, stable jobs, steady hand. And then the market's going to come around in like 3 to 4 months. Sure, we'll loft giving up some profitability, but like, it's going to be great. We're going to beat our competitors out in this thing. Turns out that was the exact wrong thing to do. We instead burned, like I said, $200,000 a month until I started to realize that maybe this was going to last longer than 3 months. And I think it took about 6 months for me to really get the picture and realize that, I'd been trimming, but I hadn't really cut down to the size that we needed to be for the revenue that we were going to have.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was that was Mattermade, and we've been building that business back up slowly ever since, which led me to start No Boring Design, because I was like sitting there on my hands, super depressed, feeling like a loser. And I was like, I need a creative outlet. Like, I can't just sit here and do nothing. And so I had these 2 designers on the team, and I really didn't want to let them go. I'm a creative person myself, and I just have like so much fun with creatives. And so, not to say that I obviously didn't want to let anyone go, but they were kind of like some of the last people left. And I thought to myself, okay, all of these tech companies just fired all their vendors. And then they also fired all their nice to have employees, and design is a nice to have. So is marketing, or at least leaders think that think that they are. So I was like, okay, so there are a bunch of these tech companies out there that don't have designers. They're going to get like 3-6 months out from that decision, and they're going to go to their one remaining marketing person or salesperson and be like, why the hell haven't we launched new campaigns? Where's our ebook? Where's the da-da-da-da-da, fill in the blank. And then that person's going to go, well, you fired our designer, so how am I supposed to do that? And then they're going to go, well, we're on a hiring freeze, so go find a freelancer or like an agency. So that was my hypothesis. Started a new brand, called it No Boring Design. We created that over the course of 5 days. It was like a week-long sprint. And my designer took the weekend, built out this website. On Monday morning, we had, a URL, a brand, a site, and I started pounding the pavement and just trying to sell the service as a separate thing, even though they were still Mattermade employees. And within, I'd say like 2 or 3 months, we were profitable. And that business this year, so that was 2023. That business this year will do $1 million in profit for the first time.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats. That's great. That's great. I love how, so you were able to repurpose some of the people from Mattermade that you would have had to let go for this new venture.
Yep.
And you're not the first person I've talked to that is kind of pulling double duty with some of their team members. And I think it's a really smart play, especially when you see that there's less of an opportunity over here, and now there's actually a bigger opportunity over there. So that's fantastic. One thing that I'm picking up is that you're really good at sales.
Thankfully, my wife leads sales teams, or she used to lead sales teams at Salesforce. So I got to learn a lot from her.
Oh,
and
genius.
That's been a very helpful skill to learn.
Yeah, it's something that I never thought that I'd be trying to sell people on anything, and I'm like, man, this is like the most valuable skill. This is incredible. I mean, this as well as the 100 million other things that I've learned building an agency, but sales is huge, and clearly you've been able to pivot just partly and due to the fact that you're really good at sales. So I mean, kudos to you for that. That's awesome. So wow, that's quite the story, going from 40 down to 5 and then pivoting and then starting a design business off the back of it. Now that one's profitable. What are some things that you think that you would tell yourself in those moments that you know now?
Yeah, I mean, there's the obvious quick hitters, like if you think that you need to let the team go or downsize the team, then you need to do it that day. Like just do it. rip the Band-Aid off. It's never going to feel good. It's never going to feel any better than the moment that you realize that it needs to be done. And the only person that's going to suffer is you and the business if you delay, right? Like if they're getting let go, they're getting let go. So delaying doesn't really help anybody there. And it sucks being on a team where you know that things are going downhill. So in a way, you're kind of,
Oh, everybody knows when
yeah,
it's happening. Everybody knows.
yeah, you're like letting them go to find something more stable, which
Yeah.
it took me a long time to get that perspective. And I'm sure there are some employees that are listening to this that are like, "Fuck you, man. That's fucked up." But whatever. I'm speaking to the other owners in the room. So yeah, that's the first one. Just make the decision and do it. The second one is like a little nitty gritty detail: is don't do it in phases. I did 3 separate riffs, and that was brutal for the team and brutal for me. And so I'd say like cut deeper than you think you need to cut, and cut once. So that's the first piece. Second piece is, more on the personal side, is just like it's all going to be fine. I'd like go downstairs and stare at the sun and sob like multiple days a week for a period of time, and it was just like a really hard time for me as a human. And I think we all have those moments where it feels like whatever's happening to us or happening around us is like the end of the world and nothing's ever going to be the same again, but it's not true. And so just remaining like having enough context and zooming out enough to see the bigger picture and know that, we've got a long ass time in the working saddle. So, what goes down can also come back up again.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's really wise. It's kind of funny. The first time the world ends for you, you think it's actually this is the end, and then it starts ending again. You're like, wait a minute, I've been here before. And then after 5 or 6 times, you're like, yeah, it's not going to end. Like it feels like it is, but I've gone through this before.
Hello, old friend.
Thinking of a Simon and Garfunkel song right now. That's all super super legit. So you've clearly learned something about little soft pivot here for you. You've clearly learned something about managing your agency's finances, probably through all of these very strenuous situations. Why don't you kind of walk me through how the idea to create Profit Labs came about?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, as you said, through a lot of mistakes and stumblings, I have learned a few things about how to run a profitable venture, a profitable agency. And, in my experience in working with financial partners, whether they're accountants or bookkeepers or what have you, fractional CFOs, as an agency, what I realized, and obviously I have a lot of agency friends too, so this comes from kind of shared experience, but the agency business is very unique. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes that ultimately impacts whether or not an agency is kind of profitable, barely profitable, or super profitable. And most of the financial support out there for agency owners comes in the form of generic SMB service providers. So, the person who's helping you with your agency is also helping the coffee shop down the street or the baker or whatever. It's so they're great with numbers and they're good at giving you a PDF at the end of every month and saying, expenses were up. You should try to get that under control. And, revenue was down. You should try to go close more deals. Right? It's like that doesn't help anybody. And so then you just kind of forge your own way and try to figure it out. So I started thinking, maybe there's room in the market for someone to come along who comes from an agency background, has walked a mile in these agency owners' shoes, and can offer services in that same category, but through the lens of an agency owner. So rather than just handing someone a PDF every month, it's like, how do we actually eliminate some of these headaches? And it's really like a 3-piece formula in my mind. So the first piece is, as agency owners, we have a bunch of headaches, like chasing down late payments from clients, or just in general, like messy back office, messy finances where you're not really sure where you stand and it takes a while to clean that up. And you're kind of constantly playing catch up. So the first piece is, at Profit Labs, we take over the back office, the financial back office, so that everything can be clean, organized, and it's just one less thing for the agency owners to have to worry about. we do that not because we want to, but because selfishly, in order to deliver on the next and most important thing, we have to have clean data. So the next and most important thing is surfacing agency-specific insights. So an example of this would be, how many times have you sat in the room with your leaders at the agency and had that moment of like, oh, well, we just lost a client or we lost two clients. Our team, it kind of feels like our team has a lot of bandwidth right now. What should we do? Should we let someone go? Should we go turn the screws on sales and hope that something shakes down? Like what? And so it's a very subjective, typically a lot of the stuff we do in agency land is like subjective, gut feeling stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then, end of the month comes along, everybody's looking at the P&L and they see, wait, we're really not as profitable as we thought we were going to be. Like we thought we were going to be kind of profitable, but we're actually like, maybe we're close to break even or we're like meaningfully lower than we thought we were going to be. And so if you lead with gut decisions, you kind of get these flimsy, unpredictable results. So surfacing insights like predictively modeling labor utilization based off of time tracking data and CRM data and historical close rates to say, okay, based on your sales pipeline right now, we know that you're going to close roughly X amount of revenue. We know that it takes X number of team members to service that revenue, and your current team is currently operating at 73% utilization. Therefore, in 30 days, you're actually going to be understaffed by 10%, which means your client service is, your service quality is going to go down, which means you might churn some clients as a result. And so we're able to very specifically surface these insights for agency owners so that they can make decisions based off of data rather than hoping for the best.
That's amazing. It sounds like there's a lot more work for you to do than just look at the numbers. You need to get access to everything. And I mean, how much of your work is actually just pulling an agency along to set up the necessary systems so that the data exists at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it requires an agency owner who's willing to play ball. I mean, we're just flat out refusing to work with folks if they're unwilling. For example, if you're not willing to track time, hard no. Like it just, because agencies are service businesses. Service businesses are businesses that charge for someone else's time. Whether you charge for time or retainer doesn't matter. But like the point is, you're employing someone, paying them for their time, and then charging a margin on top of that to someone else. So you have to know how much time is being invested in order to run a profitable venture, or a venture that's as profitable as most agency owners want. So yeah, so like time tracking is an example where it's like, if they're either using something or we're going to help them implement something, but it has to be there as an example.
So a lot of the listeners of this show, they're probably a few steps. Well, it's quite broad listener base, but I think a lot of them that I speak to anyway are definitely a few steps behind where they would be able to do that yet. And so I love to give everybody really, really actionable tips on this is what you should be setting up now, knowing that you don't need it yet, but you will need it in the future. Coming from your perspective, and also training smaller agencies now to be ready to work with Profit Labs, for example, in 6 months or a year, like what should they be setting up now?
Yeah, I mean, look, it'll feel like you don't need time track. I'll stay on the time tracking thing for a second. It'll feel like you don't need time tracking now. If you're below 10 people, you kind of have your finger on the pulse. You know how hard people are working roughly. You don't, at that size, you don't do it because you need to. You do it because it's going to give you a superpower down the road. And it's going to be annoying for people. They're going to, they might kick and scream. But at the end of the day, and this is what I tell my team members and our leaders tell our team members, is look, we're not tracking time to look over your shoulder. We're tracking time so we can support you properly when things go wrong. So, for example, if you are working too hard and you come to us and you say, I'm burnt out, this client sucks, it's too much, can you take some stuff off my plate? If you're not tracking time, we're going to tell you to fuck off, right? Or like some variation of that, or we'll be supportive-ish, but we're not going to we're going to have to evaluate on our own whether or not we believe that that's true, or whether or not like you're just trying to chill as an employee. Whereas if you're tracking time, we're going to be like, holy crap, Joanne's been over capacity at 112% utilization for 3 months in a row. That's totally untenable. We need to provide some support. We need to take some client load off of her plate. And we need to give her some time off because like we don't want to work our employees like that. And so it allows us to be more compassionate and more thoughtful about how we run the business because we have objective data to support that compassion and that thoughtfulness. On the flip side of it, and this is the one that most employees worry about, they're like, well, what if I'm not working that many hours? What if I'm actually at 50% utilization? Well, here's the reality. If you're at 50% utilization, eventually someone's going to figure out, and then you're going to get fired because it's not sustainable for business to have employees who are at 50% utilization. So like that's an inevitability. If the agency owners have a way to see that early, then it's a simple conversation like, hey, we noticed that you need more work. Let's help get you to a healthy place, right? So they can get ahead of it before it becomes like oh shit, we really need to fire this person conversation. So that's, I'd say start tracking time now so that when you need to scale, you have all of that historical data. You can set standards, you can set policies, you know what to expect from team members. It just helps making the scaling process a lot easier if you understand from a time perspective what goes into each role.
I would guarantee that there's a handful of people listening right now who have been avoiding setting up time tracking for those very reasons. So you know who you are. Now's the time. Just go do it. Do the thing. One thing that I think about a lot when it comes to, again, like managing cash flow and trying to just manage the financial health of an agency is a lot of agency owners need at least like some kind of shorthand or like a check engine light. And if they don't have anything set up, what would you suggest is that check engine light?
That's a great question. There are a number of metrics that you could start tracking as an agency owner that will be a perfect check engine light. It just depends on how financially sophisticated and deep you're willing to go with it. There's a metric called labor efficiency ratio, which is worth looking into. That gives you a simple number that you can track over time to understand how efficiently you're delivering your service relative to the cost to deliver that service on like a employee level. That's bringing a lot of stuff and condensing it down into one thing. The thing that I like that's a bit more straightforward to understand is just tracking two things on a per client basis. Those two things are gross margin and CSAT. If you can look at a dashboard, and this is one of those dashboards we give our clients, but it's something that you can easily set up on your own with your current bookkeeper or accountant if you ask them for it, is set up a dashboard where you can see, here's all of our clients, and next to each client's name, you have, this client is at 63% gross margin, this client's at 43% gross margin, this client's at 80% gross margin. And that gives you a sense of like, are you investing too much into this client to the point where you're actually going to start losing money or breaking even instead of making money on them? And it lets you to see that ahead of time as well. If you start to see that number go down and the client engagement's dragging on, you can do something about it. You can draw a line in the sand. And most agencies don't track on a per client basis. They track gross margin on a company basis. So it's a lot harder to understand like, well, what's actually dragging down our company-wide gross margin if you don't look on a client basis. And then the other one is CSAT. This was one that a mentor of mine really drilled into me. And for the longest time, I ignored his advice. And that was, you need to be sending a CSAT, a customer happiness survey, to all of your clients on like every month, or at least on a fixed cadence. I thought it was overbearing, unnecessary. Well, our team's pretty tuned in to how our clients are feeling. Bullshit. I learned this one the hard way, and now it's an absolute superpower. We send two surveys. We send the classic NPS. It was like, how likely would you be to recommend this service or this agency to a friend or colleague? 0 to 10. And then we also send, as part of that, a more detailed CSAT that asks specific, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate? And these questions can be custom for your agency. So it'd be like, how would you rate the quality of delivery? How would you rate the communication from the team? How would you rate, you pick a couple categories, no more than 5 questions on the survey at any given time. And you keep those questions the same over the duration of the agency best you can. You will learn some insane things that you wouldn't have otherwise learned about your agency, your team members, the quality of your work, how happy clients are. You'll be able to much more proactively monitor for churn risk. So simply seeing those 2 metrics, the gross margin per client and the CSAT per client in one view, is a superpower that most agency owners don't tap into, but absolutely would benefit from.
Super actionable. I love that. Those are both things that I've long thought about. So again, if you're listening and even thinking about it too, now's your chance. Take action. Eli, this has been a fantastic and super, super helpful episode. Where can people find out more about you and Profit Labs?
Yeah, Sean. So you can find out about me, connect with me on LinkedIn, Eli Rubel. And Profit Labs is profit-labs.co until I find a way to buy the proper domain. We're Profit Labs, profit-labs.co.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.